Welcome to Making Waves, the ShipRocked podcast. Welcome to episode 31. And tonight is it's a little different foray for us tonight. Tonight we are so stoked to have these two ladies here with us tonight. Please welcome Daniella Clark and Barbaranne Wylde of the HonestAF podcast. Their HonestAF podcast is also part of the Sound Talent Media family, such as much as Making Waves is. So this is a really unique opportunity to kind of, well, a bunch of broadcasters sitting around talking. Yeah, so
we have nothing else to do, right?
No, right. This is what we do. Folks out there in Making Waves land and Sound Talent Media land, listen, if you guys haven't checked out HonestAF, please, by all means. It's very informative. It's very no holds barred. And I recommend anyone over 50, including myself, listen to episode 45. It will knock your socks right off.
Seriously, it's really great.
Yeah, listen, you guys. Anyone out there, please check out the show. It's wonderful and refreshing to hear these women talk about the subjects they do, everything from aging to sex to their lives, fashion, everything. And they have some really great guests on it. So by all means, check that out. Which leads us to you guys. What made you two decide you want to step into the podcast foray? What made you say, hey, look, we're going to try this?
Well, I think because our husbands were tired of listening to us talk, so
right.
And we needed an outlet where we could chat to each other, and other people will listen to us. No one else in the house wants to listen to us, so.
I don't think that's true, though, right? I feel like you guys. You just have a lot of things to say, as do everybody that has a podcast, right? I listened to like 2 episodes today, and I was like, okay, this is something that I would turn on in general. It's beyond the beauty tips, like the conversation you guys have is really, really, really informative, cool, and interesting. So,
thank you.
As a new fan, thanks for being here. It's really cool.
Thank you. It's really funny because we never talk about what we're going to talk about, except for if we have a guest before the show. And we rarely have a moment where we're not talking. So we're good. We're just, we needed a place to talk about all of our, beauty trivia, and Daniella gives great advice. And so Daniella said one day, have you looked at our text message dialogue between the two of us? And she goes, we're always trading tips and beauty things and how to not age and what pains in the ass our husbands are. And so she goes, we should do a podcast. And I thought, why not? I'm down. So
we also thought that there were a lot of, there's a lot of women that maybe are in our age group, and also men that would maybe benefit from the conversation. And maybe it's time to just have these honest as fuck conversations, really. Because, you go through a lot of changes and a lot of shifts as you age, and in your relationships and life and your work and, in business and everything. And we just thought that would be a great conversation to have. And then, maybe people would want to, chime in, listen, and, we'd go from there. So that's kind of how it started. And then it's evolved into all this other stuff too. But it's been a really fun way to kind of, for Barb and I, just we're friends first. And since we're both married to guitar players, we both have been married we figured this out, which is kind of terrifying, but we figured out that in a combination, we've been married for 70 years.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome, by the way.
That's our age, don't we?
Yeah.
But so we just have so many commonalities, and a lot of times when we're talking, we think, gosh, I wonder if other people go through this shit. So we just thought it was kind of fun, and we're having a blast doing it. It's so much fun.
I can tell you, as a 53-year-old male, I was listening to it and I was just laughing, just listening to it, because it's so much perspective, because it's refreshing to hear women that are in my age group saying these things are so frank, because, as you get to 50, your give a fucks kind of float away, and you just kind of say
Right.
what's on your mind. You don't have to appease anyone anymore other than your family usually.
Yeah.
So the things you guys say probably years ago before the advent of podcasts and stuff, like, you would have never heard come from public figures,
Right.
which you guys are. And to now it's just, it feels, it's so refreshing to me again, because you guys kind of go in there real, like you said, you don't have a plan. There's no agenda. And you
No.
just kind of speak your minds. And again, it's nothing guarded anymore. And I imagine at times, there's times when Gilby and Zach are at home going, listen to this, maybe going, holy shit, I can't believe they just said that.
I think, yeah, we've had a
Gilby for sure. I don't know about Zach. Zach's just like, bring it on. But you guys know Zach, so you know there are not many secrets with him. He's more honest AF, I think, than we are. But
Gilby thinks we need to change our show title to, instead of the Honest AF show, he thinks we should be the Lucky AF show. Like, he thinks that's the luckiest.
true.
The
True.
brutal AF show. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Barbaranne, because last time I saw Zach was actually on ShipRocked, and we talked about the New York Giants and Jaws.
Oh.
He's a very passionate man, I can tell you that.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. Just for Christmas, Funko just released like Jaws and Quint. And
Oh,
it was
God.
one of his presents under the tree. This guy has more toys than my 8-year-old. So he's all about it. But, and he loves the nostalgia of, like, you know, Lost in Space and Jaws, and, you know,
Sure.
it's just really funny.
Yeah. Before I want to turn you over to Chad, because he has some stuff to discuss with you guys regarding you, how you run business and everything else. My curiosity is that what's it like raising families in this business you're in?
Do you want to answer that first, Daniella?
I mean, you know, I think, like in anything, it has its drawbacks, but it definitely has its benefits too. You know, I think the drawback was, you know, when I first had Frankie, Gilby had to fly back. I mean, back in those days, you know, we had like the horse and carriage.
Right.
We sent smoke signals. We didn't have iPhones, because our daughter Frankie is 26 now. So back in the day when I was pregnant with Frankie, I had to page him and let him know that I was going to probably go into labor soon. So he flew home. He was on tour with, at that time, I think he was on tour with Slash a Snake Pit. Yeah. And because Guns was already over at that time. And so he was on tour with Slash a Snake Pit. And I messaged him and said, you better come home. I'm going to have this baby. And he literally came home, and I had her at 6 o'clock in the evening. And the next morning they sent me home, and he went back out on tour. Wow. So, and then the first year was just him being gone. So, you know, I think the guys, for them, it's hard because they do miss a lot of the family life. You know, there's so many birthdays they miss, and, you know, anniversaries, and sometimes, you know, holidays and things like that. But on the other hand, it allowed us this insane experience of, like, being able to travel, and gave our daughter this unbelievable opportunity to see the world in such a cool way. And also, you know, to see her dad on stage and performing. And there's just so many cool things that you gain from the guys being in this business. I think, you know, there's so many great, you know, opportunities for us, and, you know, great people that we get to meet, and just all the traveling has just been super fun. Our daughter took her first walking steps on a moving tour bus driving through Helsinki, Finland, and had like a crowd of thousands and thousands of people sing her happy birthday on her first birthday. So, you know, there's so many cool things like that you just, you know, you never get over, and they never get old either.
Yeah, I can imagine that the first day back to school that falls, like, Frankie, how'd you spend your summer? Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as you know, Zach and I, we have 4 kids over 20 years. Our oldest is 28, and our youngest is 8.
Wow.
And we had them in 92, 2002, and 2012. So we have 4 in 20-year span. But We don't know any different. Zach and I have been together since I'm 16 years old, since he was just about 18. And it's been our life. He got the gig with Ozzy 2 years after we started dating. And it's been, a craziness ever since. But I think that's one of the reasons why Daniela and I have bonded the way that we do, and our podcast works and we connect with people, because we have a unique experience that not really we don't have any peers that have the exact same experience that we had. We've been married to the same person since we're teenagers. Our husbands are musicians. We've been on the road. Our babies have been on the road. I mean, summers, you pack the kids up and they're on the road from the time they're, that goes from pacifiers to bottles to, their school books. It's just all we know. I think
automobiles.
totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just think that, Ozzy's our oldest son's godfather. So, having Ozzy in church was pretty a unique experience. I don't know if too many kids can say that. But, it's just, it's all we know. So it works.
But Trad, before I turn them over to you real quick, I have to ask, when you guys, both of you, I'd love to know what your experience was when, like Daniela, when Gilby got the Guns N' Roses call up, and then Barbaranne when Zach got the Ozzy gig. I mean, you kind of your trajectory is like through to the moon. What was that like? Was it kind of spiraling, or like how did you deal with it, or you just kind of like it was an easy transition?
Oh, hell no. It was so scary because it was really a weird thing, because Gibby and I met when I was 16, and I was living in South Africa. I was born in Israel. I was raised in South Africa, and I was out here on vacation just visiting my dad. And because my parents were divorced, my dad was American. And I came out here, I was visiting my dad on summer break, and I was going down Hollywood Boulevard because I'd never seen Hollywood Boulevard before. And it just so happened that Gilby's band at the time, which was a band called Candy, they were on Hollywood Boulevard making their video for MTV in 1985. And I happened to just be walking by, and I saw him, and I stood there and I was just like, oh my God, who is that guy with the black hair sticking up in every direction, eyeliner, ripped pantyhose and under jeans? And he was standing on top of a car playing guitar. And I was like, I think he's the guy, but he's hot. But so my 16-year-old self was like already like, oh my God, who is this person? And then he sent the makeup artist after me. And that was, to make a long story short, that's how we met. And he immediately asked me how old I was. I lied to him. I told him I was 18, but I was really 16. And then I was
get in trouble for that these days.
Yeah. I was just like, oh no.
I actually said that to him the other day. I go, man, lucky it wasn't these days. You'd be in jail.
Yeah, right.
But then my dad took us back to the airport because it was time to go back to South Africa. My dad dropped me off at the airport, and I said goodbye to my dad, and then I turned around and ran off with Gilby and jumped in his car. So I was with him that whole time.
Your dad's worst nightmare.
Oh
my God.
I feel like I'm watching a VH1 Behind the Music moment right now that you just don't, I didn't ever prepare for this. This is incredible. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Please keep going. I just want to let you know, this is a really good story.
Yeah, it's really kind of crazy because my mom went to the airport to pick up all three of her kids, because I was with my brother, who was 14 at the time. My sister was 11 and I was 16. And I said to them as they were walking through the thoroughway from the gate, from the ticketing agent to the plane, I just looked at them and I said, guys, I'm not going to go back with you. I'm leaving. I'm going to stay with Gilby. And they were like, oh my God, Mom is going to kill you. And I was like, I can't, I'm not going. And I took off with Gilby. And then I swear you could hear my mom screaming all the way from South Africa when she showed up to the airport to pick up 3 kids, and only 2 were standing there. So yeah, that was crazy. And then so I enrolled in school. I convinced my parents that there was nothing that was going to stop me. I had to stay with Gilby or I would just run away from home again. So I enrolled in school, and Gilby would drive me to school every day. And I would wait for him on the grassy mound for him to pull up, and I would think he was Elvis and I was Priscilla. I was like so goo goo gaga. There was nothing stopping me. And so we were together from that time on till about 91. We got married. And at that point, I had to come clean when we went to go get our marriage certificate. I was like, I have something to tell you. And he was like, oh God, no, are you pregnant? What's going on? And I was like, well, no, I'm actually not 23, I'm 21. And I've been lying to you all this time. And Gilby was a well-known musician around town at that time. He was in a bunch of different bands. He was in Kill for Thrills. He had been in Candy. And so we never really walked through the front door of any club. We always walked through the back door, like Ricky Rockman's Cat House and stuff. Bordello, we'd always walk through the back door. So I never really had to have ID. So it really wasn't, it was like a non-issue until we got married. And so then we got married and went on our honeymoon. And we get back from our honeymoon and we run into our apartment and I check our messages. And, you know, back in those days, we had answering machines, which I had to explain to our daughter what those were. Sorry, let me just take a swig of water. And I checked our messages and there was a message on our machine from Slash. And he said, hey, dude, it's Slash. We want you to come down and audition for GNR. And I stopped the machine and I said, oh, one of your bozo friends is playing tricks on you and is telling you that you're going to audition for GNR. And he says he's Slash. And Gilby listened to it and he's like, oh no, that's Slash. And so the next thing I know, he goes and auditions for GNR. This is 2 weeks after we got married. And he auditions for GNR and he comes back and I said to him, well, what happened? And he goes, I don't know. They just told me to come back tomorrow and audition again. I guess they're auditioning a bunch of different people. And that just kept going on for like a couple weeks. And then one day I'm sitting in my living room and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching TV and I'm watching MTV and the globe thing that spins for MTV News comes on and it starts spinning and it says, we have breaking news from the Guns N' Roses camp. The new guitar player for Guns N' Roses, replacing Izzy Stradlin, is Gilby Clarke. And I was just like, what? and that's how we found out. And I was like, Gilby? And he comes running in from our bedroom because we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment off of Melrose Place. And I go, you're the new guitar player for Guns N' Roses. And the next thing you know, our phone was ringing, our doorbell was going, everything was happening all at once. And all I could think about was, holy fuck. I just watched the November Rain video and all those guys are dating supermodels. Where exactly does that leave me? And I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. He's gonna run off with some supermodel and I'm shit out of luck. So it was a really, that was the long answer to your question. But that was
a great really answer.
Scary
no,
time.
It's amazing is what it is. I love the fact that Kurt Loder told him that he was basically in Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
It was really
You said he was in the bedroom. Was he sleeping? Did you wake him up? Like, did he come out and like, what?
It was so scary for me. But luckily, he was, you know, Gilby was a little older than me. He was almost 30 at the time. Or maybe he was already 30. Yeah, he was 29 at the time. And he said to me, you know, listen, because I was shit scared. I was like, oh my God, he's definitely going to run off with a supermodel. I mean, Axel's dating Stephanie Seymour and, you know, I mean, not November Rain, it was the Don't Cry video that I saw. And I was like, oh God, what's happening? And then I knew he was dating a Victoria's Secret model. And I was like, oh God, all these models. But he said to me, he said, you know what? He was really, Gilby has always had his feet firmly on the ground. I mean, I don't know how well you guys know him, but he's a very, you know, kind of stand-up guy. And he said to me, you know what? The only way this is going to work is if you come out on the road with me the whole time. We have to stay together. and our marriage is the most important thing. So in order to make this work, you come out on the road. And at the time, I didn't have a huge career. We didn't have kids. We didn't have a house. We didn't have any responsibilities other than a 1-bedroom apartment and a cat. So
Cat that's still alive.
Yeah.
Stop. Are you serious?
I'm not kidding.
What?
But they do have a cat that's like 20 years old.
How in the world?
Like super
Where's
fat.
that cat? Let's get that cat.
But Daniella, it's funny you mentioned that, yes, they were dating, but he was married to you. That's the big difference.
Yeah. It was a little different, but still very scary. I mean, I remember the first time I came out on the road, their first show, they played at Madison Square Garden, and then I came out on the road, and Gilby said to me, "Hey, you see no evil, you hear no evil, you speak no evil. This is my job. This is, you're out as my wife, and you just, mind your own business." And I knew what that entailed, and I came out on the road, and but it was pretty hairy, because there were models everywhere. Barbara and I talk about this all the time on the podcast. They were like, I felt like the modeling agencies would like call all their like hottest models and say, "Hey, guess what? Guns N' Roses is in town. They're staying at such and such a hotel. Go flood the lobby and go marry yourself a rock star." Because I would walk in and I'd see all these girls and I'd be like, "Oh no."
God.
My experience was a little different, because Ozzy isn't really known for having models for fans. So it was more like, I didn't really have to worry so much, because, it was a bunch of teenage boys in, black t-shirts that went to Ozzy shows. So I didn't really have that experience. And I also had Ozzy, who said to me, basically the first night I met him, "Barbaranne, Zach doesn't fuck around. And if he did, I would tell you." And I'm like, "Oh, I know Ozzy." Because Ozzy, there are no secrets with Ozzy. Ozzy will tell you anything. And Zach's always just like, "Oh yeah, no, he would tell you." I'm like, "Oh, I know." Because
either that or Sharon would kill Zach. So.
Sharon used to, it's so funny. Our experience was a little different. We were high school sweethearts, and we were best friends.
Can I ask you again real quick before we start? How old were you and how old was Zach when you got the call from Ozzy?
So I was 16 and Zach was just had turned, he was going to be 19. And Sharon Osbourne called him in. I don't know if you guys watched the Rockstar movie that Zach was in with Jennifer Aniston and Mark Wahlberg.
Oh yes.
You know that scene where Mark Wahlberg gets the phone call from the British manager saying, "Hey, we want you to audition for this gig." That came from Zach. That's how it went down. Zach's kitchen in New Jersey. We grew up in New Jersey together, which I usually don't tell people that. I usually say I'm from California, but I'm from New Jersey too. We were he could take the girl out of Jersey. But so we were in his kitchen, and Sharon Osbourne called up on the phone in the kitchen and said, "Hey, Mark Weiss, who's a photographer. You guys probably know Mark. Is a rock photographer.
Mm-hmm.
He had been with Ozzy, and Ozzy had announced on Howard Stern that he was needing a new guitarist, that he was auditioning guitarists because Jakey Lee wasn't going to be in the band any longer." And I was listening to Howard Stern, and I said to Zach, "We've got to get your tape to them, or we got to do something, because if he hears you play, you're going to get the gig." And Zach was like, "Get the fuck out of here." And I said, "No, I'm serious. I am going to find out how to get in touch with Sharon Osbourne." I was a manager back when I was 16 and I didn't even know it. But, but ironically enough, Zach played at a club that he was not old enough to play in. We used to have to go in, do some deals to get in there, because New Jersey was really strict with the age, to get you in a bar. And Zach was like playing with this band since the time he was 17 years old. And Mark Weiss lived right near the club where he played, and saw Zach and said, "Oh man," he came up to Zach and he said, "Ozzy, I was with Ozzy Osbourne this weekend, and he needs a new guitarist, and maybe you could come up to my house. I'll take some pictures of you, maybe make a quick, audition cassette tape, and I'll get you in front of Ozzy." And I said, "I knew it. I knew you'd get this gig. Like I visualized it. I knew it was going to happen." To be honest, I really do feel like it was just predestined. And So Zach does that, and then he gets a phone call in his kitchen in New Jersey, and it's Sharon with her, British mom. She sounds like mom, British proper voice, and she's like, Zach, this is Sharon. We'd like to have you come to audition for Ozzy. Mark Weiss got us your tape, and Zach hung up on her, thinking it was, one of his friends fucking with him, having his mom, putting their mom on the phone. And because Zach's always been that guy that's just like a total goofball and pranking people. And so she called back and she's like, hello, Zach, this is Sharon Osbourne. And I said to Zach, because he heard the delay. And once he heard the delay, when she called back, he was like, oh shit, this is an international phone call. And so long story short, his father and mother, Zach was a late in life baby. His dad was in World War II. So his parents were like, older and prim and proper and, and his sister, myself, Zach and I drove to Long Island to go to the airport and sent Zach off. And it was just like, we had to do it as a family because it was like such a big deal. And, sent him off to go write with Ozzy for 2 months in England. And when he came home, I sent him off. He was like in Capizios and a sweet Zach and a little shirt, t-shirt, and just all, adorable and young and sweet, never drank a beer, completely innocent. He comes home. I pick him up after he had been writing with Ozzy for 2 months. And I'm all excited. I'm at the airport waiting for him. And I pick him up and he comes over to me and he's got like, it's so gross. He's got like carrots in his hair and all kinds of like food in his hair. And he's like got, a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, which at that time, he barely could grow hair on his face before he left. And he comes home and he reeks of alcohol. And I was like, what in the world? And he's like, oh, I got sick on the plane. I was I was drinking everything that was free booze and I was flying first class and I was just drinking. And I was like, drinking? Like, what is going on? And, the first time I met Sharon was like a couple weeks later and they were doing a big photo shoot and a press release at the Hard Rock in New York to announce Zach as the new guitarist. And Sharon says, Barbaranne, may I have a word with you? And I said, sure. And we went in the back office and she said, does Zach have a drinking problem? And I said, no, he doesn't drink, because he really didn't before he went to audition for Ozzy. And she's like, well, he does now. And if he doesn't stop, I'm going to tell his mother. That's how like young we were. And then he went to LA to record Ozzy, the No Rest for the Wicked, the first record that he did with Ozzy. And I flew out on spring break from my first year in college I had never left New Jersey, had never been anywhere except for like the tri-state area, but never been on a plane before. And he flew me out to LA to see him. And I moved there a couple months later, and it's just been our life ever since. It's just, we really don't know any different.
The mere fact that both of you were 16, 17 when all this, you met them and the life began, and then just not really that shortly after, you kind of are into this total like whirlwind of like big time rock. Yeah. Barbaranne, real quick, were you still in high school or attending high school when all this was taking place?
Oh, yeah, it was our senior
How did
year
you
in
even
high school.
Relate to your schoolmates? I'm just curious.
Zach was like a rock star in our school anyway. He was like, a lot of people don't know that Zach is classically, can play classical, and he writes, and he plays every instrument with strings. And he had in New Jersey in our school, he had won a contest for a classical piece that he had written and performed.
Okay.
And then he competed locally in New Jersey and then nationally. And he won a full scholarship to Berklee School of Music back when he was 18 years old. So Zach was kind of like a rock star in our small little world then. Yeah. But, just the movie Rockstar, even though it's supposedly, somewhat autobiographical about Tipper Owens, it's kind of got a lot of Zach going on in there too. You know, it's very parallel to what Zach experienced and what Jennifer Aniston's experience was kind of mine. It was like shell shock and, you know, being thrown to the wolves. And, but, you know, Sharon, Zach's mom died pretty soon after he got the gig with Ozzy. So Sharon became mom, and he still calls her mom. And I mean, I love her to, you know, she's too beautiful to be my mom. She's young, older sister, but she, you know, we never really had that crazy of an experience because Sharon and Ozzy were like very protective of us and you know, really nurturing to us. You know, Zach had a moment where he was crazed, but we were well beyond high school at that point.
Yeah. Well, thank you for explaining that, because it's both of those stories are amazing and interesting. I'm sure our audience is going to go, wow. Just like we were, Chad, I don't know about you, bud, but some of this is real news to me, man. So anyway, but I know Chad wanted to talk to you guys a lot about your own businesses. So I'll let him take care of that.
Awesome.
First of all, I want to say to echo Justin, like this is probably my favorite episode. Just listening to like the actual story, and you're both so good at telling it. You know, like so you're clearly made for podcasting. And you have tons of stories, I'm sure. And one of the things I wanted to ask, well, first of all, I wanted to comment on you made a note earlier, both of you, about kids, and this is all you've ever known, and the idea of being so young and sticking to it, you know, ups and downs. I'm sure there's been a lot of them. And I'm not here to expose any of those, but what I am very excited to ask you is, like, what did you find was like the rock, the moment that you could always like kind of chi yourself back and zen yourself back into that moment? Like, this is where we are together, and it's important for us to remember that. I'm just curious. You don't have to tell us, but I think there's something. So
sorry, my dog has the highest pitched bark.
I love dogs, so I just got super jacked when I heard it. It was
what kind of breed? What kind of breed is it?
You'll never believe it. He has such a high pitched bark, but he's a huge 80-pound Old English bulldog, and
makes sense.
He's great.
That's the way it
like
works.
everything else in our life, it just makes sense somehow. I don't know.
Totally.
But yeah, do you want to go for that, Barb?
You know, I don't, you know, I'm trying to think of an answer to that. I was hoping Daniella was going to go first. I don't, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, Zach and I grew up together. I knew his parents before they passed. They were my family. He knew my mom, all my siblings. I'm one of 7 kids. He actually dated my sister before he dated me.
Nice.
But
well played.
Yeah, there's something to unpack. But no, I think that you know, there's been several times over the years that, you know, things have happened to, you know, with Ozzy or one of the children, or we've had issues, and it just, you know, we're family. So I can't imagine, and I wouldn't say that it's just an attachment, because, you know, you could be attached to many things, and Zach's more attached to his guitars than he is to me. But I would say that, you know, we're really always just been super passionate about each other. And you know, that has its, you know, ups and downs. It's, you know, we're kind of like, you know, we're not exactly War of the Roses, but we have, you know, we have some intense times over our lifetime. But I don't think either one of us, and you guys are going to have Zach on, so you could ask him, but I don't think either one of us can imagine a time where we wouldn't be together. And then, you know, we have our children together, and, you know, I mean, there have been moments that we look at each other and we're like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. You know, we need to pinch ourselves. But, you know, maybe the very first time that, you know, Zach played Madison Square Garden with Ozzy, that was like a huge, like, where we looked at each other and we're like, oh my God, like, this is our life. This is crazy. You know, a couple moments like that, I think.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
How about you?
I think for us, it's always been about we're really good about being a partnership and balancing each other. So like, you know, when Gilby was out with GNR, because I didn't have all these responsibilities yet, and because I was young, I was able to go and be supportive and be on the side of the stage, cheering him on. And then when he would get home, I was really good at slapping him back into reality and telling him to go take out the trash. You know, he wasn't going to be a rock star when he came home. So it was always, you know, go take out the trash, you know, help me do this, help me do that, you know, and we're good at balancing each other. And then when my career started, after we had our daughter Frankie and he came home from GNR and was no longer in GNR, and then my career took off and I was doing my thing. I really relied on him to help me and be there for me and guide me. So I think we've always been really good at being each other's partners and being on the same page and knowing and having the same goals in life. You know, like we've always been on the same page. We knew that we wanted to be a family, and we knew that our family came first, no matter what. And I always knew that if I ever said to him, which I would never, ever, ever, ever do, but if I ever said to him, listen, I can't handle this lifestyle, he would give it up for me. I knew that, but I would never do that. And he would never do that to me either. But we knew where we stood with each other always. And so I think we were each other's rock, and we still are.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. It sounds like I picture like a lighthouse, if that makes any sense. When you're out there in those like foggy, I'm here in Detroit, but I've lived between here and Los Angeles for quite some time now, and so there's lots of lakes around me. And the first thing I think about is how that guides ships in the night, you know. And I've spent 12 years of my life as a touring musician. My previous band hung up the old saddle, and in 2019 I don't know what'll happen next, but I've had relationships come and go, some of them fleeting, the majority of them as long as they could hang, you know. And by no means do I mean that in like you know, I know it's not the 80s or the 90s, I'm not out there doing that sort of stuff, you know, but the idea of like, you know, there's insecurities. What's that?
It's not for everybody. Yeah.
And yeah, insecurities on both sides, it can be really heavy. And I you know, knowing that you came, I think it comes down to humility, right? You know, when you're that young, you know, excuse my French when I say this, but like, I call it like, if you see me shit my pants and you probably, you're still here, you know, you're good to go. Vice versa, you know, like there's no version of like being in that moment with another human being and you're still like, let's do it, you know. That doesn't say like you're ready for anything. So I was just curious if there's like a himsa that you guys do when it's getting a little too crazy or whatnot. But yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, because you do both have such interesting, outside of just being in a lifestyle that maybe you weren't necessarily choosing, even though you chose your partner, you've created really great paths for yourself, not only just like because of this situation that's happening around you, but in and outside of it. And one of the things I was going to start with you, Daniella, because I was a general manager at a high-end denim store. Yes.
And she's a legend.
Yeah, so I did to hear in you know, fuck me sideways, because I had no idea until like today when I was like going through all of the points, because I was listening to the podcast this week and I'm like, okay, of course I know who their husbands are. I'm a musician. What's going on? And I'm like, oh my God, every day I would show up to, and it was for the most part, 70% female denim store. I was like the guy who would come in. It's called Caruso in Birmingham, Michigan.
Okay.
Are you familiar? Oh my God, the owner Frank, he would have lost his shit if I said, "Hey, she knows you, bro." But it's been a long time.
Did, but my memory is sorted, so.
Yeah, it's like one of those shops that like is like legendary for like a ridiculous amount of denim. Long story short, I was reading it. I'm like, oh my God, I used to sell these jeans like every day. Girls would come in, and I was the guy, like I was like, I did the guy stuff there, but also I had to know all the fits. And when I read that, I read how it started, I had no idea, because I've been to Magic, I've been to all those trade shows and with the buyers and whatnot.
Right.
So can I ask you, because like the quick whip version of how it jumped off, you'll find like what I read was like Jennifer Lopez and these people like on billboards, which seems like on the surface okay, but there had to have been something else going on, and I'm trying to get to that part of it, if that makes any sense. So could you tell us how it started, really?
Yeah. So I started the line of, to go back a little bit, I always kind of made my own jeans. I saw an old footage of Woodstock, and I saw Robert Plant, and he was wearing, really sexy, low-rise, skin tight, left nothing to the imagination jeans. You saw everything. And I was like, oh my God, that's so hot. I want to wear my jeans that tight. I want to wear them that low. So I started kind of doing my own jeans that way. And I'd wear them around town. And then Gilby was like, well, I want jeans like that. So I made them for him. And then a couple of his friends were like, well, I want some. And so I made them for them. And it just kind of, I was making them for friends here and there. And then one day I was at the mall. I was just walking around the mall. Frankie was a baby. And this actress, Laura Flynn Boyle, came up to me and she said, excuse me, but where did you get your jeans? And I said, gee, I'm sorry. I make them for myself. And she goes, well, don't be sorry. Here's my number. I'll pay you. Make me a pair. And it was like someone switched a light bulb in my head. I went home and I said to Gilby, I think I'm going to start my own denim line. I think there's going to be girls out there that want to wear them too. And he was like, yeah, do you, whatever you got to do. And so I'm self-taught. I really didn't know anything about the business. And it's kind of the same theory for like our marriage. Like when he got in GNR, I didn't know anything about the rock business either. And I didn't know about like everything that I was going to experience. So like sometimes being young and being dumb is like bliss. So I didn't know anything about the business. I pretty much just went downtown, picked up the apparel news, started looking for what I needed. I started making a list. I need a pattern maker. I need a button company. I need a denim company. I need things. So I put together a small collection, and I put a hit list together of all the stores I wanted to be in. I approached all the stores. I wore my jeans, walked in, said, hey, I think these jeans would be great in your store. And so I picked up a couple of accounts. I was in a few stores, and then the next thing I knew, and it just kind of happened organically. Nowadays, everybody pays celebrities and influencers and people to wear their stuff. But in those days, it just happened organically. I was standing in the supermarket and I saw the cover of a magazine. Meg Ryan was on the cover, and I looked at it and I was like, holy shit. Someone's already knocked off my jeans. There's Meg Ryan, and she's wearing what looks exactly like my jeans. I want to see who shot this. She looks amazing, but I'm pissed because that looks just like my jeans. So I opened the magazine to see who shot it. It was Herb Ritz. And I looked it up, and then it said Jeans by Frankie B. And I was like, holy hell, those are my jeans. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. How did they get my jeans? And the next thing I know, Jennifer Lopez, and that's a true story, wore my jumpsuit on the cover of her album, plastered it all over Times Square, and the label was placed on the top of the jumpsuit, and it said Frankie B. And it just exploded. And I was a one-woman show at that time. I started the company by myself with my own money. I didn't take any money from Gilby, even though we were married and it was our money. But at the time, I was doing commercials and little odds and ends jobs, and I had a residual check, and I took the money and bought fabric and bought all this stuff and just started the line. And then I was walking into stores on my own and selling everything myself, making everything myself. I walked into the store called Fred Siegel, which was is on Melrose, and it's a big store. A lot of people know it in LA because it is like a trend-setting store. And I walked in on my own and basically just said, I think these jeans would do great in your store. And they were like, okay, well, we'll take, 30 pairs. They're really low though. We don't know about these jeans. They're kind of illegally low, but we'll try them. Gilby just walked up somewhere in here. We'll just, we'll give them a shot. And that was on a Friday. The dog just bit Gilby. And,
Love it.
Funny.
My girlfriend calls our house the clown house, the Clark clown house. There's always something going on. But they bought 30 pairs of jeans on a Friday. And then Monday, the buyer of the store called me up and he goes, you fucking weirdo, those low-rise jeans are sold out. He goes, get me another 50 pairs. And before I knew it, then J-Lo wore the jumpsuit and all this started out in the first year. I did like $50,000 in sales. And I was jacked. I was like, whoa, this is cool. Look at me. Yeah. I'm rolling here. And that was the first year. And then the second year I did $1.5 million in sales. And I was still a one-woman show. And then by the third year, I was at $6.5 million in sales. And then it went to 15 million. And then it just took off, and it was just like a wild beast that I could barely hold on to. There's Gilby.
Hey, can I ask you real quick? When you're just, your 1.5 million sales, you're doing it on your own. Is carpal tunnel kicking in at any point during all this?
Yeah.
Right? Well, it was so crazy. I was doing so much. And at that point I started after 1.5 million, I was like, okay, I need to hire some people to help me. I can't do all of this. I mean, I was driving all over town, delivering the jeans myself. I was the fit model for the jeans, the designer, the production manager, the salesperson, customer service person, everything. And I remember some of my stores would call me up and they'd be like, we need more. They became like a drug to these stores because they were selling out so fast. I couldn't keep up with the demand. And I remember one of my stores, the buyer called me up and he goes, I've got to have more of these jeans. I need them right now. And I said, well, I got to make more. It's going to take me a few more weeks to make more. And he goes, listen, honey, get your head out of your ass and get me more jeans.
Wow.
What am I going to do? But so I ended up hiring.
You're drive down there and beat that dude's ass. That's what you
So at that point, I hired an infrastructure. I started hiring people to help me, a sales manager, a showroom, all these people to help me, because at that point I couldn't do it anymore. It was a lot. But it was a really wild ride, and it was fun. And there was it was a really interesting time too, because a lot of people were calling me and asking me for jeans. And it was really interesting because, all the guys were wearing the jeans. I had all the musicians were in the jeans, and, it was just so fun. It was a great time. Yeah.
What I love about the story is you base them off of Robert Plant's jeans, which we all know Robert was very notorious for wearing the clothes of the women he just slept with the night before on stage the next day. So, quite honestly, you didn't really design it after a woman's jean, but great story.
Yeah, exactly.
And that must have led you to some of the design stuff you did for Lion and the Rock of Love and all of that, right? I would assume, or was that before? Was that at the same time?
Well, I got caught. It's funny. It was such 6 degrees of separation because, it was weird. As Barb and I didn't even know each other at that time at all. I mean, we were both at the Rockstar premiere with Gil. I was with Gilby, she was with Zach, and I actually ended up making some of the leather pants for some of the musicians for Rockstar. We didn't even know each other. And then I get a call to come and do. I started Frankie B Jeans in 1999. And then I think it was 2010 maybe when Rockstar, when I was doing Rock of Love, they had called me and said, listen, we want to cast you for this TV show called Rock of Love Charm School. And it was a spinoff of the Rock of Love with Bret Michaels. And it's going to be starring Sharon Osbourne. And we'd like for you to be her dean. She's the headmistress and you're going to be her dean on the show. And I was like, what? I don't know how to act. I don't know how to do the stuff. I make clothing designer. And they're like, no, that's exactly what we want. We want, someone who's married to a musician who has their own business and who's made their own way. And sorry, kids. Then I didn't even know Barb at the time. And it was funny because I was sitting on set and I was doing Frankie B. So I was burning the candle at both ends. I was doing Frankie B all day. And I had told the producers of Rock of Love that I could only come in the evening because I worked during the day. So they worked it out with my schedule. So I would work all day doing my line and then shoot straight over to the set to do Rock of Love. And I remember sitting next to Sharon a few times, and she'd be on the phone with Barb discussing Zach.
Zach was probably in some kind of trouble.
He was definitely in trouble. I think Sharon was too. But it was so funny because Barb and I didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
We met much later than that. So
yeah, so like what was that? You said 99 2000 you guys
that
met?
was like 2010. Hey guys,
oh, wow.
There's a dog over here.
So you guys have been friends for 10 years.
Daniella? No, we knew of each other. It's funny because, Zach hung out in all the same circles as Gilby, and Daniella and I had so many mutual friends, but we had never met each other. And we had one girlfriend in common who actually did a lot of the leather for Zach for his Black Label Society vests. This girl, Allison Burns, and she'd say to me, do you know Daniella? You have to get together with Daniella. You guys would hit it off, famously. And Zach really didn't know Gilby. Like they at the same time, they had seen each other during gigs or over the years on festivals or whatever, but they didn't really know each other. They were just like acquaintances. And so our friend Allison said, I was doing a shoe line at the time. And our girlfriend Allison said, you guys, Daniella would love those shoes. They're very 70s influence platforms. And she said, it all starts with the shoes. And so she said, you should gift them to Daniella because she'd love them. And I met Daniella for lunch. And I gave her the shoes and we just like hit it off from the minute we met each other. And ironically enough, Zach was doing Sturgis with his band the exact same day. And Gilby goes to Sturgis every year. He's like he's like the rock god icon of Sturgis.
Oh, yeah.
And he was at Sturgis and was hanging out with Zach, and Zach had called me that night and he goes, yeah, I met, I hung out with Gilby Clarke a little bit today. What a nice dude. He's such a cool dude. And I'm like, you're joking. And I said, I had lunch with his wife today. And I said, and I love her. Ironically enough, is God's truth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
wow.
I've been hearing about Barb for years and
same.
Never connected, and then once we did, we just became inseparable. But
and I think probably maybe 10 of the $15 million in sales she did were on me because I could not get enough Frankie B jeans. I had a direct line to Fred Siegel where they'd be like, okay, we just got this new size, this new style in, and we pulled your size and come get. And Zach's like, wow, you have a lot of jeans in your closet. I'm like, I couldn't get enough of them because I'm little and they were so low waisted. It actually gave me a torso. They're like the best jeans for, lots of guys got, which you could attest to if you sold them. A lot of guys got laid because of those jeans.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Daniella was helping. She was doing a little bit of public service back then.
Yeah, the census can thank her. That's for sure. I wanted to take that moment because you guys meet each other, right? And in Barbaranne, when you came to Los Angeles at the start of what was Zach coming to Ozzy's career, because currently right now you're pretty much the HIB, right? You're taking care of the managerial stuff. I would assume probably in partnership with Blasco, or is he still part of the team?
Yeah.
Okay, I love Blasco.
Blasco's
but
awesome.
you went to college for music management in the industry, and I've got so many questions about that course in general, and I would assume at that point in time, much different than today's version of what music management
Definitely.
would be. Like, I'm a music manager, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
but back then you had to like go, you had to showup.com. You had to go to the to the university and then present the piece of paper that says, "No, motherfucker, I can handle you." You know, that sort of shit.
Pretty much.
I wanted to ask you, like, what was the driving factor other than the fact that you're thrown into this business, right? Coming from New Jersey into here, you're like,
Right.
was it because you're like, well, I better figure out my P's and Q's, or was it because you genuinely had like at that moment, like, well, let's think about this business for the long run.
Sharon Osbourne recognized in me right when we met that I was pretty smart. And she, you know, when I told her that I was going to be moving to California and I loved it there, she said, I said, but, you know, I'm going to have to get a job. And I worked at a headhunters for pharmaceutical companies back in New Jersey, in Princeton. And, you know, always like I'm cerebral to Zach's creative side, you know, and I said to her, I need to get a job. And I had been working part-time for Mark Weiss after he got the gig for Ozzy. And I was kind of like organizing and managing his photography business because he's another really creative person who isn't really having aptitude for business or didn't at that time. And I looked around and I thought to myself, like, there's all of these creative souls and spirits, but they're not really book smart and they don't really know numbers. And to this day, I mean, Zach will ask me, what's our zip code again? You know, what's our area code, or, you know, like, it's just not the way their brains work. And I realized, like, they need someone to help them. And this comes really easy to me. So Sharon, when I told her I was moving to California, she gave me a list of management companies and manager friends of hers and record company executives that she thought would be a good fit. And I just blind, like Daniella, I just blind sent them my resume, which at that time had, you know, a couple college classes and high school. And actually, to get out of class and to go date Zach, I kept the books for my business management teacher's bar. He had a bar. I kept his books and I did it for nothing. I was 17 years old, and he gave me free passes to go out and be with Zach and to cut school. So
Tight.
I've always kind of, you know, it comes easy to me. And so when I came to California, I sent out a bunch of resumes. I got a funny story really quick, but I got a response from a guy named Mike Parkinson, who was the chief financial officer at the time of A&M Records. And he invited me in, and I don't know how he was in the music industry. Bless this man. I love him dearly. He was the chief financial officer, but he was also the head of the Christian Ministries Council of California. And so when he auditioned me, and I was a little girl, I think I may have just turned 18, he interviewed me and he said, he said, why do you want to work in the music industry? And I said, well, you know, same thing. Like, I feel like I could probably I could be utilized in
Do
this
it better.
in this forum, right? And so he said to me, and I said, my boyfriend plays with Ozzy Osbourne, and he's like, Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, well, you know, how do you feel about Ozzy's lyrics? And how do you feel about, you know, the devil and Satan and all of this? And I was just like, oh, come on, this guy, Ozzy is like the most, you know, he's always blessing himself. He wears more crosses than anyone I know. He is the sweetest human being. It's just a persona. And I got the gig. So I worked at A&M Records for a couple of years. And then I went over to I went over and worked at William Morris Agency on the agent side. And that's a bunch of funny stories too. I worked with a bunch of the rap artists because none of the little young white Jewish boys that I worked with they were all terrified. So Cara Lewis, who was the agent for all of them on the East Coast, said to me, you know, would you cover these bands? And I was like, yeah, I love it. I'm all about it. And they loved little blonde girl that, hung out with all the rappers and, hung out with Naughty by Nature and Public Enemy and, a lot of really, really good times. And then I went over and worked for Rod Stewart over at Stiefel Phillips Management for a little bit. And then Zach and I started having babies and I quit working and then I started working for him. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And to like not just for Zach, but you guys have started companies that you were like heading up this this entire corporation that from like I'm not even sure what I read up. I know the merchandising thing is like a massive part of the business, obviously, and that alone on top of his day-to-day versions of like what's next and how do we put these pieces together. But can I ask you a question? Because I tried to find it before I got in here. It's like, I want to fuck with this up. But what's Black and Skull in the Band of Beers?
Okay, so all right, so Band of Beers was Zach's his total sense of humor at the time. So they told, the lawyers were like, you need to come up with a name for your corporation, and Zach was like, oh, Band of Beers, because back then, let's face it, that you didn't see Zach without a beer in his hand, and that was that. But Black and Skull was kind of the higher end leather, the shoe line that I had. It was kind of our higher end. Premium products that we were doing that weren't really, your typical band T-shirt and hoodie, But there were a lot of years that when Zach was merchant, he was the third largest merchandise band in the industry behind Michael Jackson and the Beatles. I mean, Zach just has I have to say, as far as the creative aspect of it, most of those ideas are his. I just kind of put it all together and make it happen.
Yeah. That's incredible. The both of you have such large and in charge stories. And like I was just saying earlier, this has been my favorite episode I think we've done. And Justin's, I can attest to, he was super jacked to talk to you guys. And just knowing the inside scoop too, as you're navigating these waters that are like clearly uncharted territory, not just for like yourselves, but for people in general in that in those seats on that horse, if you will. So like maybe the lighthouse thing maybe does make more sense now. I don't know.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is something we kind of exchanged emails about is one of the questions I want to know is I want to talk about rock and roll fashion for a moment. And obviously here in the Frankie B thing, the aesthetic seems to be the 70s. Kind of throwback to that look when fashion and rock and roll met head on, and they, these bands who had no money made themselves look like gypsies because that's what their girlfriends had around, or hell, they may even borrow some of their mother's blouses. Who knows? But I was curious on what
Zach used to wear his mother's jackets all the time.
I don't think. Yeah,
I got one.
I would look at him now and go, yeah,
for real, he did.
No, but so I wanted to ask you is what is your take on, there are some bands, Greta Van Fleet and bands like that, they've kind of gone back to that look, which I love. I mean, people think, well, it's rebranded Zeppelin. I'm like, well, rebranded Zeppelin's better than no Zeppelin to me. So I was curious on what is your take on rock and roll and fashion these days?
Danielle, that's your question.
I think that music will always influence fashion. That's just a given. Music will forever influence fashion. And especially for me, just that's what inspires me. And I think it inspires a lot of people. So right now it's weird because right now it's the whole Billie Eilish look, everything is oversized. It's a whole different ball game than what it was when I first started doing Frankie B. But I mean, God, I was known for crack, for butt crack. But and at that time it was like Britney Spears and J-Lo and everybody was wearing the jeans. But for me personally, music has always influenced me, and it still does to this day. I really like in terms of inspiration now is I really look at my daughter. My daughter's my muse now. And she's in a band. She's the lead singer of a punk rock band called Frankie and the Studs. And the one thing about musicians and why it inspires designers all the time is because being a musician really represents freedom and being who you are and having such a strong sense of self. And the real artists out there, not the manufactured ones, but the real artists really have a sense of self. And it shows in the way they dress and the way they put themselves together and everything that they do. And that really speaks to me. And that's one of the reasons why I really love Billie Eilish, because she's doing something that no one else was doing, and she is just who she is. She wears big sweatshirts. so what? But it's so cool, and so I love it when people are just authentic, and I think that authenticity is what really inspires me, and I love that about my daughter too.
It's really funny too, because when Zach first started with Ozzy, I don't know if you guys remember, but he always wore bell bottoms and the really high-waisted leather pants and stuff. Zach was a different aesthetic. It was more high-waisted little bolero jackets and kind of like Prince on a 6-foot tall Viking. But it was really funny because Zach said to Sharon, she said, well, we have to get you clothes. You can't be walking around in Capezios and, your mother's jackets. So we have to have clothes made for you. And these two little, she sent him to these two amazing designers who did all of Elvis's clothes. And so I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning, Zach wore all the matching high-waisted leather and patchwork bell bottoms, and they were actually Elvis's patterns that these gentlemen pulled out and actually did all the beading and everything were Elvis's patterns. So Zach's always been kind of, we couldn't get him in them now, but he always was all about, he had all his own jeans made at the time because no one made them. It was very much a 70s aesthetic for Zach. Zeppelin and the Stones and all those bands that he loved, Black Sabbath, Ozzy,
What I remember of Zach when I first saw him was I just always remember shirtless, the fitted bell bottoms and that Les Paul. That's all, and the hair. And I was like, that's always his vision. So, and both of your husbands have a certain look that's their own. I mean, Gilby, it's fitted jackets and scarves.
Yeah.
And Zach is obviously what Zach's look now is, which is cuts and the gear and the black label stuff. He's a walk-in bill.
And the kilts.
And the kilts are new. They're kind of a somewhat new in the last 5 years thing, right? Yeah, those are great. So they totally work.
I actually love them on him. They, everyone always says to me, does it bother you? I'm like, and many people have made the mistake of asking him what is under the kilt. And then they have to, get that answer. Because you ask Zach that question, you're getting the answer. You're seeing the answer.
Idea.
Oh gosh. So I don't know if you guys are aware, probably Goop, that whole Gwyneth Paltrow world.
Oh, the Vagina Candle.
Yes. So early
on. Is that a real thing,
our...
by the way? Is that really smell like?
I don't know what it's. Daniella, have you ever smelled that? I haven't smelled that candle, but apparently she thinks that's what her vagina smells like. So good for her. But more power to her. But our producer who's been helping us with our podcast, she said, you guys need to come up with your own candle and we should call it Under Zach's Kilt. So it's very funny because, of course, Zach loved every moment of that. But,
sure. What would that smell like? What would that smell like?
Can I just give you an idea?
Barbells and coffee.
Actually, Zach smells, honestly, Ozzy and Zach are probably the best smelling rock stars you will ever meet in your life. Zach,
Margiela, right?
Oh my God, we have people run after him in hallways and hotels and stuff saying, what is it that you're wearing? Or when he does meet and greets, I'll get tons and tons of direct messages or emails or whatever saying, please tell me what Zach wears for cologne. He smells amazing. So I would think it probably smells like Maison Margiela, but
That's awesome. I just thought about the Goop thing and the kilt thing and how you could marry those two things, especially with the juxtaposition of it being really great smelling. What if you were to use the exact font of Goop, but just call it Gooch? you know.
There you go.
There you
That
go.
could work.
Hey, speaking
All right,
of
just an idea. You know.
speaking of meet and greets, Zach still holds the record for the longest meet and greet ever
Oh.
for ShipRocked. So because he certainly
Yeah.
does take at least 3 minutes with every single person. And when it's
Yeah, for
700,
sure.
800 people, it makes for quite the afternoon, but he's a gas doing it. And we'll always love him for that. So thank you.
It's so funny. He still has a bit of that being a kid and a fan. He
Sure.
still sometimes has to pinch himself when he looks over and sees Ozzy at the microphone. And he just cannot imagine not signing stuff for people that are in that line, like that they, and it takes a lot of guts to come up to someone and ask for their autograph too, because it's intimidating. And
Sure.
Zach just feels like, I mean, it was really funny because through COVID, when they were talking about us going back and forth, like, oh, we're going to be able to do some shows socially distanced and we're going to be able to do so. And they were like, yeah, we'll bring back the, meet and greet. And I'm like, there is no way you were going to get Zach to do a meet and greet that he's not putting his arm around somebody, taking a photo with them, giving them a hug or a kiss or that's just who he is. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I do love that about him, but I have shortened the line in my day because sometimes I'm just like, okay, Zach, that's enough. And then I'll have these eBayers come with like stacks of shit that they want him to sign. And I'm like, listen, you with the blue marker. He's not in Blue Label Society. He's in Black Label Society. He's not signing your shit. Fuck out of here. Excuse my French,
awesome.
but all 5'2" of me will have to cut that line. But yeah, he's got such a big heart.
So fun.
That's awesome.
Well, listen, what we like to do when we end the show, and you guys have been with us for over an hour, and we can't thank you enough. This has been seriously my favorite show to date, and you guys are so fun. And we'll talk about your show once again after we finish this. We do a thing called Walk the Plank, and basically we ask you 3 questions. Chad has a question, I have a question, then we get one that we sent in from a fan. And we love an answer for each question from both of you, and they're nothing to do with music. They could be anything, and we're just looking for what comes off the top of your head. So, Chad, you want to begin?
Sure. Same question, both of you. I'll direct this to start with to Daniella and then Barbaranne. So, what would you love to stumble upon at a yard sale?
Probably a good leather jacket.
I love that. How's it smell? How do you imagine? Can you imagine the leather smell?
Yeah, pretty musty, but I like a good worn-in leather jacket.
Love it. Barbaranne?
Has some old concert stickers on the inside, some backstage passes.
Yeah, just slap right in the inside. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'd love to find like the Lost Van Gogh or something and know what the person didn't even know that they had it, or a Banksy or something like that they thought was just
a business mind.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of how we could sell something and go on a trip and, you and I just take off for a while. But yeah, no, I would love to find that.
I was going to say that'd be, you could flip that right away. My question to you is this, guys. It said, Danielle, we'll start with you. What, how do I want to put this? Do you possess any of the qualities of your astrological sign?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Can I ask what you are to begin with?
Aquarius.
Okay. Also as well. So what are those, of the Aquarius, what do you possess?
I think I'm pretty eccentric. I'm a pretty crazy dresser. So I'll go to the grocery store in platform heels and leather pants, no problem.
Well, you are a designer, so in a lot of ways that just totally makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah. So basically you're very eccentric and you're kind of like your own independent spirit.
Yeah, definitely.
And she's a pioneer.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Yes.
Those low-waisted jeans.
Yeah.
Barbaranne, can I ask what you are?
This is a loaded question.
This is a very loaded question.
I am so true to my, you just listened to our 45th episode. I'm Scorpio.
You are Scorpio. Okay. Well, I'm not really familiar with that sign. So can you tell me what of those qualities you possess?
Well, Scorpio is the sex sign. So, I am all about it.
Jot that down for my Bumble. Looking for
really good in bed.
Scorpio is supposed to be, they're supposed to be secretive, which I am not. And jealous, which I am not. But as far as the passionate and the sexually obsessed, it was really funny because we did that episode 45 with Tracy Cox, who is a sex expert and wrote 17 books on sex. And
that was a fun
said to
episode.
myself, it was great.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And I said, oh my God, this woman has to be a Scorpio. There's no doubt about it. I mean, her libido, her books, and I laughed because her birthday's November 1st and she's a Scorpio. So that would be what I'm true to my sign.
Which is amazing about her because the English are supposed to be known for being somewhat sexually repressed. So she went against the grain. There we go.
It's not.
Well, thank you.
No.
Yeah. Chad, you want to answer you want to ask the fan?
Yeah.
Question,
yeah.
please?
I mean, this is a fun one because we are a ship-rocked, ship-oriented podcast. So I'll do the same order before. They want to know, the fan wanted to know, if you owned a boat, what would you name it?
What would I name a boat? I don't know. What would I name? Frankie, what would we name a boat? What? I don't know. I'm kind of stuck.
ShipRocked is a good
What would I name a boat? Under my kilt? No.
Oh, top of the head always works. So what do you got? You got someone else?
34 double D? I don't know.
That's a good one, Daniella.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of lighthouses.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How about you, Barbaranne?
Mine isn't anywhere near as exciting as Daniella's. If I had a boat, I would name it Jerome's because Zach's dad's name was Jerome, and he loved boats, and Zach bought him a boat when he first got his first big check from Ozzy. So it would be Jerome's or Jerome.
That's awesome.
That's perfect because I know Zach does talk very openly and affectionately about his father. So that's great. It's great. Well, listen, ladies, I can't thank you enough. Chad and I and the whole Ask For crew were stoked, and you guys have been so fun and entertaining and informative. So thank you so much.
We cannot wait to be back on.
We want to listen, we want to definitely do a second round of this, maybe in the summertime with you guys, if you guys are up for that. Yeah. So everyone out there, please check out HonestAF. You can find them wherever you get your streaming at. You can go to Spotify. Where else can we find you guys at?
We're HonestAF Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and honestafshow.com is our website.
Fantastic. And they can go and check you guys out. They're you done your 46 episodes so far?
Yeah, I think tomorrow is going to be 47 or 48. We have Courtney Six tomorrow with Nikki Six's wife.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's cool.
Tuning in, definitely. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
great.
Anyway, guys, check them out and make sure when you do find them, subscribe to their stuff so you can never miss a moment of them. And speaking of subscribe, please subscribe to Making Waves. You can find us also wherever you get your podcasts. And so thank you for checking us out. Look, real quick before we leave, we want to thank our show producer, Al McManus, our show engineer, Jennifer Zito, our show coordinator, Heather Smith, and obviously the captain, Alan Koenig. Make sure and check us out. We'll drop this episode on Monday so everyone can pay attention. We'll get that information to you at the end of the week. Daniella Clark, Barbaranne Wylde, thank you so much.
Thanks. This was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you for having us.
Seriously, I cannot wait to call Frank Caruso after this and be like, guess who I just talked to?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Oh, and I remember the store.
Yeah, I will be.
And remember, guys,
she totally knows you, man.
Also, one other thing, guys, both HonestAF and Making Waves are part of the Sound Talent Media Group. So thank them as well. We'll do this again.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks,
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.